Good morning from Disturbia, 16th of April, 2024. When you read the Gospels over and over again, for example, the Gospel of John, you pick up on the fact that the Pharisees could in no way have been the chosen people of the Messiah, and that they just did not understand the Messiah. They did not see that the Messiah was their Messiah. First of all, you have Herod, who is an Edomite, slaughtering the innocents, which is in Luke, because he got wind of the fact that the Messiah was born, and he said that he wanted to worship him when in fact he wanted to annihilate him and eradicate the Messiah. Why? Because Esau has his own Messiah, and that is who he calls Mashiach, and that is Satan. John 8:44. You also pick up on the fact that Jesus had his own disciples who were not Pharisaical. They were not of Esau. They were children of Galilee who were drawn supernaturally by God down to the place of their nativity, which you can find in Jeremiah 29, 30, 31, and 46, Isaiah 60, Isaiah 9. It's really all over the so-called Old Testament and all over the so-called New Testament. But it is not taught in church. What is taught in church is that there's the old and the new, and the old has nothing to do with the new. And that's not true, because God made a promise to Abraham and he kept it. He said, your children will be a blessing to the whole world, and your seed will be called in Isaac. So, another thing that we see here is that Jesus makes a clear distinction between the commandments of God and the laws of the Pharisees. And if you realize that the Pharisees were the children of Esau, and you realize that the Pharisees have their own law. In fact, they are a law unto themselves. They have the Talmud, which is actually an inversion, perversion, and subversion of the laws of God. It is anti-Christ. They hate Christ. They knew exactly who he was, and that is why they always sought to kill him. They were plotting and planning and seeking to kill the Messiah from the time he was born. Here is one example. Jesus answered them, is it not written in your law, I said ye are gods? Because the Jews said, who are Esau? They said that Jesus was witnessing of himself, and therefore his witness was not true. And Jesus said, I come from the Father, I'm witnessing for my Father. And then Jesus is telling them what they say in their own law. And you see, he's calling them hypocrites. Because they say that they are gods, when in fact Jesus Christ was God, whom they reject as God. And in fact, all of the pagan heathen religions, all of them, SDA, LDS, JW, and even some Protestants, preterists, they will tell you that Jesus is not God, because their God is Satan, and they believe they are gods. That is why they do it. John 8:17, it is also written in your law that the testimony of two men is true. I am one that bears witness of myself, and the Father that sent me beareth witness of me. He did say, this is my Son, in whom I am well pleased. Hear him. John chapter 7. Moses therefore gave unto you circumcision, not because it is of Moses, Circumcision is not of God, but of the fathers. And ye on the Sabbath day circumcise a man. You see, Jesus was not allowed to heal, but they were allowed to circumcise. He was not to make whole, but they were allowed to maim. See the wickedness? If a man on the Sabbath day receives circumcision, that the law of Moses should not be broken, are ye angry at me because I have made a man every whit whole on the Sabbath day? Matthew 23, 1 through 4. Then Jesus spake to the multitude and to his disciples, saying, The scribes and the Pharisees sit in Moses' seat. All therefore whatsoever they did, you observe, that observe and do. But do ye not after their works, for they say and do not. For they bind heavy burdens and grievous to be borne, and lay them on men's shoulders, but they themselves will not move them with one of their fingers. Why? Because they're above it. This is the elitism and the superiority of Esau, who calls himself a Jew. Here we have in Matthew 15, Then came to Jesus scribes and Pharisees which were of Jerusalem, saying, Why do thy disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? Well, we just learned that the tradition of the elders of Zion is not the law of God, 10 Commandments. They wash not their hands when they eat bread. But he answered and said unto them, Why do ye also transgress the commandment of God by your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honor thy father and mother, and he that curseth his father and mother, let him die the death. But ye say, Whosoever shall say to his father and mother, It is a gift, by whatsoever thou mightest be profited by me, and honor not his father and his mother, he shall be free. Thus have ye made the commandments of God of none effect by your tradition. You hypocrites! Well did Isaiah prophesy of you by saying, This people nigh unto me with their mouth, and honoreth me with their lips. But their heart is far from me, but in vain they do worship me, teaching for doctrines commandments of men. So really, actually, Isaiah was talking not to Judah. He was talking to Judah, but Messiah is talking to the people here of Esau. Now, another thing I wanted to show was that they make much of the Sabbaths and the sacrifices of the so-called Jews who are Esau. But what does God say? I despise your feast days. I will not smell in your solemn assemblies. Though ye offer me burnt offerings and your meat offerings, I will not accept them, neither will I regard the peace offerings of your fat beasts. Take thou away from me the noise of thy songs, for I will not hear the melody of thy viols. Whenever I think of viols, I think of harp, which is, of course, the voice of the serpent, Satan. Here we have in 1 Samuel 15, And Samuel said, Hath the Lord as great a delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as in obeying the voice of the Lord? Behold, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to hearken than the fat of rams. For rebellion is the sin of witchcraft, and stubbornness is as iniquity and idolatry. Their rebellion is witchcraft, and so are their laws, which transgress the commandments of God. Matthew 15:3.